Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Drummers Education Connection. My name's Jeremy Steinkohler. I'm here with my two dear friends, fantastic drummers, terrific educators, all around great dudes. Rick Stojak in Southern
Hey, everybody.
California
Hey.
and Chip Ritter in Tucson, Arizona.
Hello.
Unfortunately, we don't have our fourth compatriot today, Bart Robley. He's feeling sick, so we wish him the best and a very, very speedy recovery. And hopefully Bart is here in spirit, we know for sure, and we hope he feels better really soon. So we're here to talk today about something that's I think a core issue for a lot of drummers. We're going to talk about how to get faster.
Ooh.
It's a big subject, and we have a lot to talk about, and we got a lot of things, a lot of tips we're going to share, a lot of debates we're going to have, maybe even some disagreements, which I'm looking forward to. Before we get deep in, I would say this, one thing to consider is, do you need to get faster?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Right.
the assumption was always faster is better. And I feel like there's a culture in general among drummers, and in drum magazines, what have you, videos like that speed is always the best. Speed is what you're after. And speed is certainly good. There's nothing bad about it, but speed is just speed. It's just a tool as far as I'm concerned, that's useful when you need to play music that requires you to play fast, right? So if you're wanting to play stuff that's faster tempo, if you want to play metal, fast rock and roll, up tempo jazz, well, yeah, then you need it. But if you don't, if you're a country rock groover and a pocket guy and you're just chopping wood all day, maybe you don't need to get faster. Like Mitch Marine, we had on the drummer from Dwight Yoakam, who talked about, we were talking about asking him what he practiced. And he said, man, I don't practice paradiddles because I don't feel like practicing paradiddles is going to serve my playing for Dwight Yoakam in any way. Right. Because he doesn't need to play faster than he can already play. So that's something I think worth stating at the beginning, because we're going to talk for the next hour about how to get faster. And I think it's important to keep it in perspective what speed does for you and what it doesn't. It doesn't make you a better drummer. It just makes you a faster drummer.
Yeah.
Right. Would you guys agree to that?
Absolutely. It's somewhat overrated.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. We should almost can this episode and do one about groove.
Right.
No, I'm
right.
kidding.
We will.
If you're a younger drum student and you're playing a beat and you're slowing down and you're slower than the song that you're trying to play along with, you need speed to get up to the tempo. You need a certain amount of speed to be able to play at a certain rate of speed so you can create a groove to begin with.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
And on that level, on that micro level, speed is very important.
Sure. Right. No. I mean, and even
timekeeping, controlling your time.
Right. Although I think of those as two different things a little bit, right? There's how fast can you play, and then there's how steady can you play. Right. And they're related. They're related because if you can't play fast enough, you're not going to stay steady at those more challenging tempos. But I think of those as different but related. Anyways, so we're going to talk today primarily about how to get faster, our experience as educators, our experiences as players. We're going to share some tips and some drills and exercises, a little bit in the weeds stuff about things you can do to work on your hands, work on your feet. And we're going to talk about the big picture in terms of speed. There's a lot of different methods out there. You see YouTube advertisements all the time about, gain, this much speed in 8 weeks for doing this course, or follow this method, and it's the guaranteed success road to blazing fast singles or whatever. Rick, let's start with you. Like when you're before we get into your own practice and what's gotten you as fast as you can play, when you're working with students and trying to get them faster, let's say it's groove playing or just their hands, like what is your general approach?
Well, one thing I do first, I want to just add to the beginning of this is that playing fast is fun. What's wrong with that, right? Everybody wants to play fast, and it does sound cool. And anything that motivates you, that's cool. If you're like, man, I'm just so stoked to just try to get faster and faster, that's your thing, then that's beautiful. If that's getting you on the kit and you're burning some calories with it, man, that's a great thing. And then getting in deeper to the how important is it? Well, it's definitely overemphasized, I think, by our social media culture.
Right.
You know, it's not exciting to watch a video so much of someone just grooving, I'd say, compared to somebody just wailing, going fast. So
Mhm.
I think going fast gets more clicks, so of course, or more likes. So that's why I think people are into it. And so I think you've got to decide what music you want to play to. Also,
Mhm.
like Mitch Marine is like, man, I don't need to be playing fast. I don't need to be doing super fast paradiddles. But if you're going to play some extreme metal, like your student Max,
Mhm.
who, you know, is a Gene Hoglan protege, he, you
Mhm.
know, fast is
It's part of the name of the
everything.
game.
You're
Yeah.
dead in the
Right.
water if you can't keep up that tempo.
Right.
So, you know, for my teaching, you know, the biggest thing, man, is I always like people just got to stay loose. You know, that's the one really obvious thing. I think people equate speed with muscle and
Mhm.
strength, and that's the first thing younger drummers, I think, have to be aware of. Like, hold looser, looser, looser. So I'm always like, lighten up on it. Let those sticks rebound. Let's, you know, like dribbling a basketball.
Mhm.
And that really helps. I think that there was this perception that drumming was a masculine thing. That's why so many drummers played, because it was a physical thing. And
Mhm.
so guys are powering through with their arms, and you know, now it's great. Women are drumming like crazy, and the finesse, and they're, you know, so super fast, you know, because they're applying these more loose techniques. So one of the things that I've had good results with is, you know, with my volume 1 book, not to over promote, but you asked. Um,
How to build
you
a
know,
drum groove.
yeah, and, you know, I have the playlists. I'll have our basic beat, our, you know, beat 1, kick, snare, right?
Mhm.
And then I've got the playlist. There's probably 20 songs, but I have them in order by tempo, BPM order.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think getting a measurement is one of the things that you, through this system, you can really get a measurement of how fast, you know, of your development. So I've got Take Me to the River by Talking Heads 99. So all right, we can get up there, and then like let's push it up. Bright Light Big City by CeeLo 109. And so I think having a great measurement
Mhm.
is really helpful. And you know,
Well,
also often it puts people in it puts it in perspective as you start getting up here. Rebel Yell 167, all the same beat. You know, people realize, oh, it's going to take a little bit of time.
Well,
And
that's a good point, Rick, because I know a lot of people, you know, have these ideas that are very vague about getting faster, but they don't necessarily have benchmarks to measure their progress or to be able to evaluate, you know, how much faster do I want to get? How much faster can I get? And how, you know, how is my progress getting toward that goal, right? What does
right,
faster mean? It's different for different people. It's different for different styles of music in terms of what you need. And, you know, I have a lot of students who come in and they say, I want to get faster, you
yeah,
know, and I go, well, what do you mean? What do you want it for? And what do you want to get faster? Is it your hands? Is it your groove playing? Is it your fills? You know, I love what you have there with your book, with your, you know, uh, stratified, you know, program of increasing your tempo and having these benchmarks to meet, because then it's something solid and definable.
exactly. And you know, it's not just the hand speed. Most people, when they're saying they want to get faster, they are generally talking about grooves. They're talking about beats and four-way coordination. So one of the keys to really getting that speed is to really be able to break it down so they know
Mhm.
exactly what they're playing. So a lot of it is mental. It's
Mhm.
focus. It's the actual coordination of it.
Right.
It's not just this physical thing. It's like,
Mhm.
how well do you really know the beat?
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's where you're gonna get the speed. You know, if you don't know what you're doing, it's not gonna be fast.
Right.
Yeah,
Eh,
you have to have familiarity with it.
yeah, exactly. You've got to be super comfortable with it. And one of the things that I see a lot is drummers have this tendency, they have it, okay, they're playing along the beat, and then they get fat, they're like, oh, well, let me go a little faster and a
Sure.
little faster and a little faster, and they're actually training themselves to rush. And so what I often do is I'll say, we'll be playing a beat. Okay, cool. Let's get the metronome on. Cool, you got it at 80 beats a minute. Let's stop it. Let's stop the metronome. Let's put it at 85. Okay, can you do it there? And incrementally build it up to the point where, okay, now it looks like you're straining. If you're straining too much, using too much arm, grimacing too much, you even start hearing it in the sound of the drums.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then I'll do little videos of them playing, and then let them see, hey, look at how you were at 85, and now look at your body and listen to it at 105, and you'll see,
right,
man, it was flowing more. So
it's not the same level of relaxation, right?
Yeah, not the same level of relaxation.
Yeah, that's great. Great.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
Chip,
what about you, Chip?
Well, when I teach, I have a playlist on my phone that goes from 62 BPMs to 67, 75, 80, and I go all the way up in gradual increments up to like there's even, you know what I mean, like 213, and I've got the whole list on my phone, and I can scroll through where the student is. So basically, when a student is trying to get faster, I make sure that they try to go as fast as they can clean. However fast they can go and stay steady, I guess is the key, is that's the benchmark. And I call that like 100%. At any given day, it can change what they have for breakfast or how much sleep they got. It could be different however fast, but however fast we can get a benchmark as far as how can they go fast and clean and steady and hold that would be 100. And then I take them back down to about 85 or 80% of that 100, and we work for longer periods of time and train the muscles just to go steady and keep that beat going. And then later at the end of the lesson, we'll go back up to that 100%, and I'll push them a little higher. And normally they've increased like 5 to 10 BPMs no matter what happens. So that's my basic go-to method. You know, we as drummers have been anointed with the technology of metronomes.
And that's basically,
that's the key to what speed is, because like you said before, how fast is fast? What are we talking about? You have to clarify, you know, I want to be able to do these fills faster. Well, okay, so how fast do you want to go? You have to get an example. There's got to be a goal to shoot for. So finding and clarifying that goal is very important, I think, in the beginning when it comes to learning how to get faster, finding out what it is you want to get faster at.
That's great, Chip. I totally agree. You know, one of the things that for me is like one of the pillars of my sort of teaching philosophy has to do with what I call threshold practicing, which is very similar to what you just talked about. And the idea is that if you practice something a little bit too fast, meaning it's past that 100% mark that you referred to, Chip, where it's no longer smooth, or like what you were saying, Chip, where you're tense, or you're squeezing the sticks, or your shoulders are hunched up, or there's that little bit of hiccup in your groove, you're not practicing getting good. You're practicing getting sloppy. Right. And whatever you practice, that's what you get good at. So if you practice sloppy, you get good at sloppy. Right. And so your goal is not speed per se. First of all, if your goal, first of all, is smooth, relaxed, fluid, from that comes the speed. If you go the other way around, you're never going to get there. And then you're just going to get really good at being a choppy drummer, which is not something any of us want. So, and also, like you said, Chip, when you practice below that threshold, so I always tell my students, you know, find whatever the tempo is that you can practice this thing and play it perfectly cleanly. Maybe it's slightly challenging, but you're holding it right. Then back off there from maybe 5%. I go about 5%. And that's sort of your optimal speed for getting faster, because then you're in control. You're practicing it smoothly. You're getting that neural feedback where
you're
your
executing.
Body, yeah, exactly. And the muscle memory is developing. And from there, as that gets easier, what was slightly challenging then becomes easier. And then that threshold is able to go higher without you ever actually passing it. Right. So if you can do something at 100 and that's your max, you practice 95 for a week, you're going to be able to go faster than 100. But if you practice over 100 or 102, 105 all week, you're not going to be faster. You're going to be sloppy at 105 all week. So that's a big concept. And that goes for anything: sticking, fills, rudiments, grooves, whatever it is you're practicing. You know, I think it's good to talk. I'm going to talk just real briefly about a little bit of the science behind how our bodies learn to do things. And it could be drumming, it could be dancing, it could be ice skating, whatever, turning a double play in baseball. Your brain, you're trying to get your limbs to cooperate with your brain. You know, I teach my students, here's a groove. They understand the groove intellectually, but they can't yet do it with their hands and feet. Their hands and feet just don't obey their brain's commands in the beginning, right? And so how do you get that, you know, how do you get your hands and feet to cooperate with what your brain is asking them to do? Well, the first thing you got to do is break it down into pieces as needed to, you know, absorb it. But the main thing is to go slowly enough, right? And nobody thinks, I've never had a student think they're playing, they play too fast, right? They always play things too fast, and they'll play something they won't be able to get, and they'll stumble, and I'll say, okay, go slower. And then they'll do it again at the same tempo. And they think they're going slower, and they don't go slow enough, right?
They might just go softer a little bit.
Yeah, right.
You get that. It's like, no, I didn't say quieter. I said slower.
Right. And you know, sometimes you got to go painfully slow, where you're just doing one note at a time. I'll sometimes tell my students, I want you to not hit a note until you're 100% sure which limbs are supposed to hit next, even if it means taking a 5-second pause.
Yeah.
And yes, it'll be out of time. And yes, it's hard to hear it when you go that slow, but at least you're getting it right. And once you're getting it right, you can build on that. Right.
Jeremy, so, I love that. I love that. Don't hit anything until you know exactly what the next thing is, rather than
so you can say, oh, okay. Because if you go that slow, you're going to get it right. It's like sticking, you know, if you're going through stick control, you know, those are easy patterns. It's just a right or a left. It's a 50% chance of getting it right.
Yeah.
Right. So if you just go slowly enough, anything's easy if you go slowly enough. So when you execute a certain move, your brain, what you're doing is creating a neural pathway. You're firing a neural pathway, an impulse from your brain along these neurons in your brain to the limbs to move at a certain desired timing, right? And every time you fire that newly formed neural connection, your brain insulates that connection with this stuff called myelin sheathing. Myelin, M-Y-E-L-I-N. And it's basically like insulation around a wire. And what happens as your brain produces that stuff, that material that insulates that that neural connection, is the connection gets stronger and it gets faster and more efficient. So what happens is with repetition, that move gets more and more ingrained, and it starts to go exponentially faster. Like, you'd be amazed how much more quickly you can start to do these things once you do them correctly repeatedly. But the key part there is doing them correctly, because if you're doing them wrong, it's like you had a short circuit in that, you know, in that circuit that you're trying to groove, and then, you know, your brain doesn't know which one you're trying to do anymore, right? So as your brain creates that myelin, the execution of the move gets like much easier and much more fluid and much faster. Right. It's just like, I liken this to like when I used to coach Little League baseball. And in the beginning, when kids are like 6 years old and you're trying to teach them to throw a baseball, throwing a baseball is not that easy a thing to do, especially for a little kid. And there's all kinds of rotation and movements and things that need to happen. But then by the time they're 8 or 9 and they've been playing baseball for a couple of years, you can have a catch, and have a conversation while they're having a catch. It's like automatic. Like, you and I can go out and throw and have a catch. It's like we don't even think about the mechanics of it. Just like you and I can play grooves right now. I can sit here and have a conversation with you while I play this beat on my drums. And no problem, I can keep it going while I'm talking to you. Holy crap, how can I do that? How could I possibly sing while I'm doing this? La, 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 la. Right? Because my body can do that from the muscle memory, because of that myelin sheathing, because that connection, all those connections are so well insulated, it can happen without my having to think about it so much.
Is that myelin? What was it again? Myelin sheathing?
Myelin. It's called myelin.
In the comments to what a myelin sheath is and what the function is from WebMD. I put a link in there in the comments. And I also want to make sure we say hi to Jim Royal, Kathy Smoller-Smith, and Jacob Sosa. Thanks for watching.
Friends.
Hey, everyone.
Love having you guys on. Yeah. Oh, so that I see that link you put up has to do with multiple sclerosis, but myelin sheathing is something that every human being creates this in your brain. It's part of how we learn to walk. It's part of how we learn to write. It's part of how we learn to do anything physical in the world, get our limbs to obey our commands. And for those of you who don't know, there's this amazing book I have here. It's called The Talent Code. Highly recommend this book. And it talks The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. It talks, this guy went around to all these different places in the world that were churning out these like elite level talents. So soccer, chess, tennis, singing. Like how is it that these academies were producing these like a way disproportionate number of elite level world talents, baseball. And he talks a lot about how their methods for teaching and how they got people to get good really quickly. And one of the key pieces was how they taught skills. And in the same way that we teach these skills in the same regard, where just what we're talking about, what you guys both do, and I do, what all good drum teachers do, is, you know, you get people executing smoothly, correctly, relaxed, consistently, and then repeat, rinse, repeat, and keep going and getting faster, and having a plan.
I think that when you're building that myelin sheathing, that's that place when you're practicing where you're a little bit uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you know, if you're lifting weights and you're feeling like, well, I think that's what goes on mentally. And
yes,
from my understanding of all of this is, you know, you're developing that when you're feeling that little bit of uncomfortable mentally, and I think that's something that drummers need to really say, you know, I think they try to avoid it, like this is too hard, or oh, I'm not having fun doing this. But you're growing. That's how you know. I'll tell my students, you know, that's how you know you're getting it done.
Right,
you're mentally straining, man.
100%.
Yeah.
I always say when you see the smoke coming out of your ears, that means you're learning something.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the things Jeremy said was it takes time to improve your time. And a big key to improving your speed or getting faster is to invest practice time in getting faster. You know, you don't get fast. I don't think you get faster by not trying to go faster. You've got to try to go faster. But again, what we're talking about is the load, I guess, the amount of stress put on the body and the brain at the same time. You know what I mean? With drumming is different than other sports. So it's like, you know, once you're familiar with it, it's going to be easier. And the more time you invest getting familiar with whatever it is you're trying to go faster at, the more it's going to benefit you and the faster you're going to get.
Right. Practice, you know, you've heard the saying, practice makes perfect, but really practice makes permanent. Right. That's the better way to think of it, because however you practice, that's how you're going to play. If you practice choppy, you practice with hiccups, you practice stumbling, that's how you're going to play. So you got to go slow to get fast. You know, it's really that simple. And if there were one mistake that my students make, or that I see among amateur drummers more than any other, if you had to boil it down to what's the one piece of advice I could give somebody to be a better drummer, you know, the answer would be slow down, because you can't hurt yourself by going slower. You can only improve. And most drummers practice too fast because their ego, like you were saying, Rick, they want to get that thing quick. They want to get the speed. They want to get there. And, you know, they're not willing to put the time in to go incrementally faster. And that's one other thing about that too. You know, I've had students like who they're working on 16th note bass drum control, doubles, let's say. Boom, got, boom, got, boom, 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 right. And sometimes there are times when you can sort of jump a little bit and you can go like, I can play it here, and then, hey, I can play it here. And I've got that fast twitch with the right foot, and I can get the doubles up here, but they can't necessarily play it all in here. You know what I'm talking about? Have you guys had this experience?
Yeah, I've had that.
So it's like, you know, and then what happens is, because they get good with the 16th notes at this tempo, any tempo the song is, it ends up coming back to this one because that's where the bass drums want to sit, right? Because that's where they can play them. Or they're playing a tempo that's slower or faster, but the doubles of the bass drum aren't proportionate to the tempo they're playing. Instead, they're at that comfort zone where they can play them really comfortably. Boom, God, boom.
Yeah.
But the song could be going at a different tempo, but the bass drums are not in the pocket because they're.
I have a few students that are like that. I've got a couple that they get the heel toe method going, and then they can only do the heel toe method at a certain speed. But then there's, you know, when they can do their toe down double, that's at a lower speed, and there's a gap that they can't really control. I understand.
Right. Same with hands. I've seen it with hands sometimes too. So I always suggest when I come across people like that, that when they, what we do is we start really slow, where I know they can play it very easily, and then we bump up the metronome 1 BPM at a time, instead of instead of 5, then 5, then 5, or 10, then 20. We go 1 digit at a time, and I make them go through a whole week of practicing an exercise, and they're only allowed to increase the tempo 1 BPM per either per day or per minute or whatever, per X number of exercises, until they're comfortable, and they can't go to the next digit up until they're perfectly solid at that tempo before. And then by the time, with some time, with some effort, with some practice, they're going to fill in that gap between where they can play it comfortably and where they can play it comfortably, even if they can't play anywhere in between.
Yes. As we know, playing slow is not easy. And I think that's
Right.
the problem. You'll say, hey, you have to slow this down and control it, but that's easier said than done. And like our buddy Daniel Glass says with his deliberate practice, and you mentioned it, if you want to play fast, you need to play slow. So I've tried to, what I'll do often is double the click track, like slow it way down,
right,
and then double it, so you get an 8th note click,
right,
and that helps a lot. And and the reason, of course, why it's so hard to play slow is there's more space between the notes,
right,
and there's like a bigger target to miss,
right,
actually.
That's right.
And so the other thing that I'll do is, you're not always, we try to play to a click and practice to a click as much as possible, but that's not always gonna happen, right? And so if you're just clicking, because I think it's important to practice without a click also, I'll just do like a 3 and 4 and just start. Because if I tell them to count off 1, 2, 3, 4 slow, the 3 and 4 are always faster.
Yeah, right.
It's just like, man, I can't wait to get to 4. If we're going that slow, come on, man. 4.
Well, you bring up a really important point, Rick, which is about playing slower being harder. Because here I am saying, or up until now I've been saying, oh, you got to go slower to get faster, go slower to get faster. And some people might say, oh, but slower is actually harder, right? Because like you say, there's so much more space between the notes. There's a bigger margin for error. I have to feel the distance between the notes, and that can be really hard. And that's true. So what you say is really important as a practicing method. You just need more reference points with the metronome, right? So instead of the metronome going at 61, 2 like that, give yourself at 120. You're still playing it physically slow, but you've got twice as many reference points with the metronome to work with. So it's going to be easier to stay in time.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's really important.
Hey guys, I want to break in real quick and say hi to David Betts from the UK. He said the Drumeo package arrived, and thank you so much. David was a winner on our last show.
Hey,
Kathy Smith says, what helps encourage me when I'm frustrated is to trust the process. And then Jacob Sosa also said, right, you got to be frequent before you get good, practicing control.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you guys know this book, right?
Colin Reed. Yep.
Control. Yeah.
Yep.
It's not called bass drum speed.
It's bass drum control.
It's called bass drum control. Right? Of course, you go through that book because you're wanting speed. Everyone goes to the book, oh, I want to work on my right foot speed. Yeah. Well, it's control you're after. Speed comes from control, not the other way around.
There you go.
That's right.
So go slower and control and trust the process. That's how to get faster.
It works. I guarantee it. I will put down any amount of money because I've been doing this for 30 years. And in all my 30 years teaching and all my 40 years playing or 50 years playing, this is what I know to be true. That you practice comfortably.
I agree.
Smoothly, all the things we all three of us have agreed upon and said so far. So I guess one of the takeaways here from if we step back for a second from all the things we've been talking about is that it's attainable, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of people, they think, oh, how could I ever play that fast? It just doesn't seem humanly possible. Yeah. Well, of course it feels that way when you can't play that fast.
Yeah.
Right. But as you go, it's not going to be you're going from here, I can play at 100. And then, oh my God, 3 weeks later, I can play at 200. It doesn't work like that. You go from 100 to 101 or to 105. And over time, you got to, like Kathy said, you got to trust the process because it will work if you're committed for the long haul.
Yeah.
Now, one other important piece of the puzzle to be aware of is that in the beginning, when you make jumps in increase in your tempo and your speed and your control, because you're going so slow when you start, it's relatively easier to make bigger jumps early. The faster you get, the smaller your increases are going to be, because you're getting closer and closer to sort of, what's going to be humanly possible.
For that threshold that you were talking about.
Exactly. So whereas somebody who's playing, let's say, single strokes at 60 on the, for first couple of weeks of practice, might be able to get up to 70 or 80 in a week. That's a huge jump, right? That's like 15 to 25% increase. Well, if you're starting at 180, it's going to take you a lot longer to get to 190 than it did to get from 60 to 70.
Yeah, right.
Right. Because now you're talking about getting the last little percentages of how much faster you're going to be able to get ever. And it takes a lot of work to get those last few percentage points.
Right.
So that's a good thing to remember too. So that's something I talk about with my students. We set goals for them that are reasonable, but then, we say, look, if you're wanting to go past that, you want to get to that elite level of control and speed, you're going to have to work really, really hard and long to get those last little few BPMs.
Yes.
Yeah, it takes discipline and timing. And, there's a great drummer that I'm friends with named Derek Roddy. He's arguably one of the fastest double bass players out there. And a few of his videos are on YouTube about, improving your speed. And it's like he's using his left foot constantly, so slow and steady, but over and over and over for longer periods of time. And it takes a great deal of training of your muscles to get going, especially with, let's talk about that, foot speed versus hand speed. What are you guys' take on improving your foot speed versus hand speed? Is it different for you?
We're in the early stages as drummers to develop our feet, because let's face it, we've had hundreds of years to develop our hands, but our feet, this is a new thing, man. We're just at the beginning of it, and
well, and with your feet, you're engaging with these mechanical pieces of machinery, right? Whereas with your hands, you're just moving a stick in space. Yeah. With your feet, you're engaging with a pedal, and that changes.
You're also using larger muscle groups.
Exactly.
Which
That's right.
take more time to develop the larger muscles. Like with your fast twitch with your hands and your fingers, that's a different game, right, versus the big larger muscles of your legs, or your I forgot the name of them, but the muscles in the back where your rear end connects to your legs. Those muscles take time to develop. Yes. That's it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Big muscles are used for big things. Big, the stronger the bigger the muscle, the slower, but the stronger it is. The little muscles are used for faster, but not as powerful. So that's why jazz players incorporate a lot of finger technique. You get that push-pull action, go ding, 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 using fingers for that. Because there's no way if you use your arms, your biceps, your forearms, you're going to be able to move those muscles that fast.
Exactly, and that's another thing coming back around to hand speed with younger students. When I see them using their wrist and their forearms more than their fingers, that's part of the key to getting faster, is to know which part of the muscle group you're trying to apply and learning how to actually use that to effectively improve your speed.
Absolutely. Rick, you had something?
I think you guys are awesome, man. I got you guys. Well, the good news, seriously, the good news, I think, especially if we start thinking about kick speed, is a lot of times we think that's, big, strong, tall people have it, but man, I've seen really fast kicks with all different kinds of drummers. So anyone can do it. And the thing I want to also emphasize with kick speed is it's not just for extreme metal. Like, you can apply that fast kick. I mean, we know Louis Bellson was a jazz drummer, was the guy who came up with the double bass. He was the first guy doing it that we know of. And so you can apply it to lots and lots of different styles. So, I do a lot with my electronics and triggering, and, electronic sounding music that we play live on the drum set sounds so cool. And there's just so much that you can do with 2 feet that you can't do with 1 foot. So,
Well,
go for it. Don't limit your double kick playing because if you're not into extreme metal, just go for it and don't wait to start doing the left foot. People say, well, I want to get my right foot together first. I get that to a point, but you know what? You're going to work on all of your limbs your entire life. So you might as well get started with double kick as soon as you have the passion for it. And people always ask, when should I get into double kick? I'm like, when you have the passion and the budget, but just don't buy a cheap double pedal because you don't want to compromise the quality of your right pedal because you bought a cheap double pedal.
Well, I would add to that you want to get into it when you start wanting to play music that requires it.
Right.
I mean, if you don't need it, there's no, it's not critical path, and save it for when you do need it. And some drummers never get into double bass pedal.
Right.
And as far as coming back to bass drum control, this book, which I highly recommend, by the way, this is a game changer. If you haven't been through it, I've had students, and myself included, who have gone through that book multiple times. And I had a student who's just now, he's probably maybe halfway through it the second time around. We did it once, twice, 2 years ago, and now he's doing it again. And he said, wow, I'm getting so much more out of going through this book the second time around than I did the first time. So, and he got a lot out of it the first time, but it takes time, man. There's no shortcuts. You got to do the work.
No doubt.
And that goes back to one of the episodes where we were talking about the value of reading music, the value of being able to read music, and how you can get students to learn how to read and therefore feed themselves on their own time, going through these books and learning those different variations and ultimately improving their ability on the drums.
Yeah.
Kathy Smith said her snare weight was delivered. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Nice.
I love those things. Those are great. I enjoy it, Kathy.
Said, preach it, Jeremy. Preach it.
Who said that? Who said that?
Jacob Sosa.
Oh, thanks, brother. Thanks, brother. Oh, love it.
Hi, Josh Posey.
Oh,
we got to get Jacob on the show one of these days.
Yeah, we do. We definitely do.
I know, that'd be fun. Jacob, there's your invite.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what about stretches for you guys? Do you have any specific stretches that you use to make sure that you're warmed up? And what is your warm-up process? Because I noticed myself personally, I can play faster once I'm warmed up and flushed out and ready to go. Yeah. When my forearms get a little bit of a swole on and I stretch out and I've got my thing. But what is your practice routine for speed? Like, how do you warm up for a show?
I definitely do like hamstring lifts. These guys.
Oh, those are that's stretching your quads.
It's quad stretch. Yeah. And then all of the stuff all the stretches that you do if you were jogging. I really like to get my lower half really, really relaxed. I think we forget about that, and we do a lot of hand stretches, but I really think that building up from the bottom works pretty well for me.
I primarily focus on my hands, and I have a pad that I keep in my trap case that I have for warming up, and I'll just like you said, Chip, I'll feel like much more ready to go if I've put in a few minutes of sticking and flams and rolls on my pad. And I don't necessarily have a specific routine I go through. I'll do some singles, doubles, paradiddles, and paradiddle permutations, and some flams and flam taps, flam accents, and a lot of 6-stroke rolls. That's one of my go-to.
There's just when you're talking about speed, and I'm thinking about my playing personally. For me, the things that I can do super fast, or the fastest things that I know how to do on the drums when I'm soloing, those things take a certain amount of time for me to be into a level of performance that would be able to hit those rates of speeds. Like, there's a lot of things that I can't do cold,
Yeah, right. That's good to know, right? I mean, you don't want to put the drum solo, the 5-minute drum solo in the first tune.
I'll add to all this with the warm-ups too, is that part of the speed is our overall physical and mental conditioning. You've got to make sure you get enough sleep. You've got to have a good diet. You've got to be physically fit. So you're not going to be like wailing super, super fast on the drums if you're completely, not taking care of yourself. So
You got to take care of yourself.
I'll tell a quick story about that to illustrate how important that is. I had a gig a couple years ago at the SF Jazz Center, which is like the Lincoln Center of San Francisco. It's not as big, but it's like the jazz main, where all the national acts come through. And for me, that's a really big gig to play at that venue. And I was coming there from music camp, and I was rushing because I had to get there. I had sound check and load in and drum setup and all this stuff. And I didn't eat breakfast. And I tried to stop. I figured, I'll pick something up along the way. And of course, every place on the way was closed, or I couldn't find any place open. So, I ended up getting a Coke, like a Coca-Cola. And I don't ever usually drink Coke. And that was all I had for breakfast. It was, yeah. And, I got there and there was food for the band before the gig. So I ate them, but still I was like, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was dehydrated, right? I didn't drink enough water. I ran out of water on the way as well. And in the middle of the first set, about halfway through, we were playing Big Chief, that tune, Professor Longhair. And it's got this really busy, second line snare drum pattern. Bam, bam, kind of thing on top of a bass drum and hi-hat ostinato, and my hand cramped up and it like turned into a claw, and like I couldn't and
not
it was
enough
painful.
water, man.
Not enough water. It was painful. Like my hand was like, gripping the stick really tight, and I couldn't unbend it and I couldn't control it. And it was like in the middle of that, and I had a drum solo that was about to come up, and I started freaking out. And I was trying to get the band's attention, like, hey, I can't take a solo because my hand's cramped. And eventually, I started playing with one hand, and I shook the hand that I bent it open on my leg, and got through it. But and I drank like crazy amounts of water on the break. But man, that was a great example of you better take care of yourself, especially as you get older, man.
Yeah.
Maybe when I was 25 that wouldn't happen, but not anymore.
I find that eating bananas keeps from cramping. It helps a lot too. There's something about having the potassium in your system that helps you keep from cramping.
Yeah.
That's your Arizona thing, man.
Yeah. Yeah. In Arizona, you got to be hydrated all the time, or you just turn into a pile of salt.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if you're even thirsty, it's too late.
How many drummers in Arizona are just pillars of salt on the side of the road?
Exactly, man. Exactly.
Hey,
go ahead.
Going back to the bass drum technique, I had a student who was all about the heel toe thing, and he easily could get some really quick, snappy hits. The problem is that's the only way that he could play, and the tone wasn't consistent. And so I just really think that practicing all these different kinds of, we heard about all these different kinds of concepts. There's Moeller method, there's push pull, there's the whole Freddie Gruber thing, there's stuff that Dave Elick is teaching up in LA. There's all of this stuff. I think if you get into any of them, you're going to grow as a player. I don't think there's one answer, and I think people have to find for themselves what it's going to be. And have some trust in your teacher and go for it, but don't let it mess up your drumming. If you're
don't let it
like
mess up your drumming.
Yeah, don't let it mess up your drumming.
Well, that's true, man. You bring up a good point. Like there is more than way. There is more than one way to do it.
Right.
And I've seen amazing drummers have great success with terrific control, plenty of speed and chops, who ascribe to the Freddie Gruber method, who are devotees of the Moeller method, who use heel toe, who use heel up, who use heel down. There's just not one way to do it. And I'm not saying anything against any of those methods, because they're all great. And if you buy into them, they will give you tremendous rewards. If you're dedicated to working it out. But it's kind of like if you're dedicated to working on, anything, it's going to give you rewards. I guess the main thing is that one thing that's good about those methods is that they teach you a certain economy of movement and a way to get into a natural sort of respecting the natural way your hands and feet want to move, so that you're not fighting against those things and causing injury, right? That's, for me, the biggest one, is don't do anything that's going to cause you injury or limit you in any way.
That is number one. That is number one.
Yeah,
a lot of drummers get into bad habits.
Make sure you're warmed up and properly stretched out, and that you feel comfortable. And a lot of the greatest drummers, when asked about speed, talk about being relaxed. They talk about the ability to, or the need to learn how to stay relaxed while moving that fast, so that you can facilitate the notes.
Well, I always say that tension is the enemy of groove.
Yes.
And this is something you guys both have already said in different words already today. If you're squeezing too tight, if you're using the wrong muscle group, if your shoulders are up around your ears, if you got your stick held at a wonky angle, it's just going to cause problems. So there are ways that are going to be helpful to learn proper technique that'll help you get, limit those obstacles that might otherwise come your way.
Right. Oh, and don't forget to use the right stick for your hand.
Mm.
I've seen drummers go, "This is the perfect stick, man. My signature stick is the best stick ever." And you're like, well, it's the best stick for the size of your hand and the style you're playing. But look, my hands are not your hands. So I think it's,
I have really big hands.
Wow. Uh-oh.
Look, it takes up the whole screen.
Oh my gosh, it's huge. Thank you, thing. I think studying all of these different techniques that are out there is a great idea. And go with what your passion is, and then they're just like, and then apply what's best for you, for your style. You might find one little thing, molar thing that you use in one section of a song, and say, man, thank God I learned that.
You guys, if you haven't checked out this video yet, I highly recommend it. It's called Secret Weapons for the Modern Drummer, or of the Modern Drummer, Secret Weapons of the Modern Drummer by Jojo Mayer. Yeah. Jojo Mayer is just a beast. I mean, the guy can tear to pieces anything. And it's a really deep dive into stick technique, hand movement technique. And he goes over all the different techniques. And he says at the beginning, look, not all of this is for everybody. You got to pick and choose what works for you out of these things, and practice it. But that's a good thing to remember. Not everything is for everybody. You don't have to be a master of every single technique. Max Roach wasn't, Elvin Jones wasn't, Buddy Rich wasn't, John Bonham wasn't.
Find what works for you.
Yes.
And get good at it. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Hey, I had a student who was playing in a punk band, and they wanted kind of like an inconsistent sound and an inconsistent timing. And I said to my student, I think you're a better option for that band than me.
Right.
Like, I'd hire you over me on that gig. Mine is going to sound clean and, in tempo. So,
what's funny is, the White Stripes, right? Jack White and Meg White. So there was, I think Jack White was being interviewed. I forget where it was, maybe NPR, about that band, the White Stripes, which is a great band.
Right.
And it's just a duo. And Meg White was, not a trained drummer, right? Not a practiced drummer, kind of a raw, pretty, neophyte. And Jack White said, yeah, I told her I didn't want her to practice.
Yeah.
Because I deliberately wanted it to have this kind of rough edge where it wasn't perfect and it didn't have a lot of finesse, and it was very kind of garagey, punky sounding. And so that's a good example, like you're just saying, above your student. Yeah. Sometimes that's what the doctor ordered,
Yeah. They never do that.
Yeah. Dave Weckl, probably not the best fit for the White Stripes.
Right. Exactly.
I'm sure he would have killed it. No disrespect.
I'm sure he could play crappy if he tried. No. Oh, this show is live. There's no edits.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get in trouble one of these days.
Yeah, I know. Hey, if it's cool, guys, I have a drill that I want to share. That for me has been a really, really great one for helping on me and my students with developing single stroke speed. Is that okay to share with you guys?
Yeah,
love that.
All right. So I have my pad here. Let's see if I can get the decent angle on it. You guys see that okay?
Yep. We can see the pad.
Yep.
There we go. So it's a really simple concept, but it's a little bit of a tricky exercise and also really fun. and it takes a good 5 minutes to get through if you do the whole thing. So it's kind of a nice thing because all you have to do it is once as a warm up. And it's just the idea of playing single strokes. You can start with the right hand if you're right-handed. So you're playing 16th notes. So your click would be going 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going 1, 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. But on the last 16th note of the measure, you're going to convert the last 16th into 2 30-seconds. And it's all single strokes. There's no double. So it'd be like this: 4 E and a 1. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E, 3.
Yeah.
So you do that for 4 bars.
Okay.
And then if at the next, at bar 5 or the next sequence of 4 bars, you start the 30-second notes 1/16th note earlier in the measure. So instead of converting the last 16th into 30 seconds, you convert the last 2 16ths into 4 30-seconds. So the second stage would go 1, 2, 3, 4.
So the and a 4 are both diddled.
Right. And then the E and are all diddled. 1,
Yeah.
Diddled,
2,
but singles.
3. And then the fourth stage, all the full fourth beat, all 4 16ths would be doubled. 3, 1 E, 2, 3. And so on until you go through all the entire measure. By the time you're done, the whole measure is all 30-second notes.
Yeah.
That's a great practice.
Isn't that cool?
That's
So
a great
yeah.
practice exercise.
So it's you do it for every 4 bars. You
Yeah.
start you add another pair of 30-second notes to the bar.
Yeah, you're working on your diddles and your control and
and you're leading
your
and
placement, your
and you're
understanding of the rhythm.
Right, that's right. And that last one's you'd think, though, that's not such a big deal. For a lot of people, that's very tricky, being able to track where they are and start the 30-second notes at the right slot. And like Chip said, you end up with the odd number stages, you end up leading with the left hand half the time. And that's something a lot of drummers don't practice.
You know,
Yeah.
Another thing, if we should put that in the episode somewhere, as far as how to get faster, is work on your less dominant hand more. Double up whatever the practice routine is on your hands. Like Ed Shaughnessy did a clinic, and he was asked about his speed, and he's the first thing he said out of his mouth was, "I worked on my left hand. I doubled up everything. I was leading with my left hand. I started playing rides with my left hand and really improved my speed just by improving the speed of his left."
Yeah.
You know, and that comes down to things: brush your teeth with your left hand, doorknobs. I do yard work.
Yeah.
With my left hand.
That does. That's true. It helps.
What else do you do with your left hand?
I know.
All kinds of things.
Oh, I knew it was going there.
He's growing new mylar sheaths.
Myelin sheathing with his left hand.
You know what will really help your speed is doing the Flamabarda diddle diddle.
Yeah.
Our brother
I practice
Bart.
those all the time. The Flamabarda diddle. It's the best rudiment there is.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Bart, you better get better quick, and you better get back up on this screen because we want
Get
all
better,
your
Bart.
insights on this. If
Oh,
you're watching.
I will guarantee you that Bart Robley would have had a whole lot of good stuff to add to today's conversation about how to get faster.
Oh, absolutely. So we're going to have to pick his brain again on that. I think this is a great topic we can.
Yeah. And I'd love, this is this is sort of a never ending thing, right? You're always after working on speed, and, how you go about it makes all the difference. And that's one of the big takeaways from today too, is it's not just put in the time. It's not just how much you practice. It's how you practice. That's going to make all the difference in terms of your success. And
having very clear goals is also going to speed up your process, because you're not going to spend time chasing different aspects or knowing, like I said, again, when I get a younger student or a middle-aged student in there and they're like, help me get faster, the best question is, what do you want to play? Right. What is it you're trying to do? If you can give me close to what it is, the rate of speed you're trying to get at, I can figure out an exercise program that can get you to that. Right. But you can't find somewhere that you don't know where you're going, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
it's
that's
really
exactly.
You have a clear goal as far as your speed.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is get in a band right away. Get in a band that plays. If you want to play fast music, get in a band that plays fast music. That was how I started. When I was 16, I was playing punk in New York City. I had to figure it out. You know?
Did you play at
How did you
CBGB's?
figure it out? How did you get faster, Rick?
You played at CBGB's?
My first gig in my entire life, I was 16 years old, and I played at CBG.
Oh, that's
my very
awesome.
first gig. Yeah, we grew up in Connecticut, so we could get into the city, and then Max's Kansas City was my second gig in New York City, which that was that other legendary punk club. And man, I remember one summer of practicing, I lost a lot of weight. I was with my brother in our band because we were just hauling butt. We're just and Ramones on a and I just had to do it. And I was a Keith Moon freak, so I was very animated. And I think that helped me lose weight, but I was probably playing stiff. I know I was playing stiff because I was breaking a lot of sticks.
Right.
And then I realized if I loosen up and do all this, and then working with my teachers, realizing, okay, if I loosen up, I can get that speed. But you know what? A little bit of plowing through, working really, really hard, breaking into a sweat, that helps. So, I know we always talk about playing loose and relaxing, but I'm sure I was straining too. And I don't know, perhaps that helped me grow. Perhaps that did help me get faster in a way. I didn't get any injuries at 16 years, but I developed more muscle tone. So,
yeah, going for it helps. You have to try to get faster. The whole process, like Jeremy was talking about, incrementally bumping up your BPMs. There's effort required in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would not recommend, muscling past your threshold and just going faster because, you think pushing it's going to get you there. I mean, you have to push, but you have to push wisely.
I agree. And I think that's exactly it. I completely agree with you. But there was definitely a push that I had that did help me surge forward. And maybe just by the fact of having to do a push, it put me right in the hot seat where I had to figure it out. So, maybe
that's true.
I was a little over my head and that,
yeah, right.
And so, I've thought about that a lot over the years, like that I had to push it, and I think it did help. So
so slow down, but push wisely.
Yeah, nice. That's a good one. Oh, that's going to come back in future episodes. Whoa. Slow down and push wisely.
Whoa. Is that going to be on a new deck?
And use your left hand.
That's going to be a t-shirt.
Yeah. I know we're going to get in trouble.
Bart leaves for one day and the whole show goes to hell.
I know, man. Well, what do we have next week? What do we well, hopefully Bart will be back next week.
Is Tony Pia coming next week?
Well, we'll keep you all posted on what's happening next week to all those who are tuning in, and feel free to let us know if there's an episode that you'd like to hear. If you'd like a roundtable, we're happy to do it for you.
Or if you have guests that you think would be great on the show, please feel free to recommend. We'd love to have.
Yeah, recommend anybody you'd like to see on the deck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And this is big news. I can't believe I forgot to mention it until just now. We're launching a website, and it's going to be up probably within a week, I want to say, because we're really close to being done with it, and it's awesome. Looks great. We'll tell you more about it. We'll put up a big announcement on Facebook, and stay tuned for that.
Website.
What the deck?
What the
deck? It's going to be a double-decker. All right. Well, you guys, we had a lot of fun. I hope you got a lot out. You all got a lot out of this. I know I certainly did.
I did too.
And it's a great topic to talk about. I kind of feel like we could bring up anything, any topic under the sun related to drumming and playing and teaching, and I feel like we could just sit here and talk for hours about it.
Yeah, man, I want to go practice.
Yeah.
That's how Deck really started. Bart, Chip, and I just having these conversations, and then we'd collectively said, we should hit record and stream this.
Yeah.
And then, of course, thank God you came aboard afterwards, Jeremy, to straighten us out.
Is to
And
keep you on
anoint
the
us
straight
with
and
your
narrow.
technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
got it
pleasure,
super.
Super fun. Super. Oh yeah, we're gonna have deck merchandise too. We're gonna have Drummers Education Connection T-shirts and mugs and other stuff like that. That'll be on our website, so that'll be cool. I'm gonna order the first one.
That's gonna be cool.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you all next week. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of our little corner of the world here.
Thank you, everybody.
We love what we do here, and so happy you're share this time with us. And we'll see you next week, hopefully.
We appreciate it, everyone. Thank you.
All right.
Take care, Bart.
Feel better, Bart. See you guys.